Hi, good evening, everyone. Just want to call the meeting to order for the Oxnard Public Works and Transportation Committee for October 28th, 2025. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call and posting of the agenda followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
Committee Member Basua. Here. Mayor, Vice Chair Theran.
Here.
Chair MacArthur.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the kiosk at City Hall, the Oxnard Public Library, the city administrative offices, and on the city's website on Tuesday, October 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. You can just repeat after me. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're all kind of on our own pace here. That was not the best Pledge of Allegiance. Yes, I think the commander was throwing us off a little bit on his own pace. We will move to the first item on the agenda. This is for public comments for items not on the agenda and for non-action items. We have one speaker, Angela Wycombe.
Good evening. This is just a simple request. Angela Wycombe, Chair for the Downtown Oxnard Improvement Association. I'm requesting that the city send Doya and myself a list of the basic services that they do for the downtown, this is baseline services, so that we can make sure that we're augmenting and fulfilling the gaps that may be needed. It's just a really good way for us to do checks and balances and make sure that all things are covered and nobody's thinking that one hand's doing something when the other hand and the other one is, or so that we don't miss anything. So I just would like to request that we have that and we can continue with our great partnership and be as efficient as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers on this item in person or online?
And Chair MacArthur and committee members, that concludes our speakers in person and virtually for items not on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further speakers, the next item is the consent agenda, and the only item I see here is the approval of the minutes for the October 14th Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. Do any members have any questions or comments on this item? No? Any public speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur and committee members, we do not have any public speakers in person or virtually for the information and consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the committee on this item?
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call for the vote.
Vice Chair Theran.
Yes.
Committee Member Basua. Yes. Chair MacArthur.
Yes.
And this motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is D1 from Public Works. Subject entails the purchase of walking floor transfer trailers and deep drop tipper transfer trailers for the Environmental Resources Division. The recommended action is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize, number one, the purchasing agent to execute a purchase order with the Trailer Company, Inc. for a total contract amount not to exceed $1,400,000 for the purchase of 4 walking floor transfer trailers and 7 deep drop tipper transfer trailers, and 2, a budget appropriation of $228,207 from the available fund balance in the ER Development Fund 634, and Director Mike Wolf is here to answer any questions we have on this item. Any committee members have any questions or comments of staff on this item? No? Okay. Madam Clerk, any comments? Any public speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur and committee members, we do not have any public speakers for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of this committee on this item?
I will move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call for the vote.
Committee Member Basua.
Yes.
Vice Chair Theran.
Yes.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes.
And this motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is D2 from Public Works. The subject, this is the workshop for lighting at city parks which includes sports field lighting, walkway lighting, and the park hours for lighting. The recommendation is that the Public Works and Transportation Committee discuss and review the current inventory of city parks with sports fields, parks with walkway and sports field lights, to consider the pros and cons for adding sports field lighting and walkway lighting at other city-owned locations, to consider a pilot project for sports field lighting, and provide recommendations for locations and hours of operation or other staff direction as necessary as we gain here from this workshop. We will go to public comments first. We have a number of them. Madam Clerk, do we have any virtual speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur and committee members, we do not have any virtual speakers right now. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with Michelle to come first, followed by, I think it's Rainey? Yeah. Hi, Michelle.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Michelle Kimball. I've been a lifelong resident of Ventura County for 60 years. I'm here to advocate for restroom facilities for the Southwest Community Park, located at 2500 West 5th Street, near the Boys and Girls Club. I'm aware you're discussing installing lights at this park, but I'm asking if you would consider installing restrooms first. Southwest Community Park is 26 acres, and a park of this size is large enough to host a variety of activities and attract diverse groups of users, all of whom need access to basic sanitation. Restrooms are necessary to ensure the comfort, safety, and health of all visitors. Without dedicated facilities, people are more likely to relieve themselves outdoors, and human waste diminishes the park's quality and can cause environmental contamination. This is where I come in. My husband and I recently purchased a home on Kite, just behind the park's playground. I guess that belongs to Boys and Girls Club, I didn't know that, but there's a playground there. Anyways, we purchased a home there at Windrose, the Point community. I have witnessed on many occasions park guests relieving themselves, men and children with the help of their parents. They're not homeless. They're park guests. I have emailed the city with my concerns and understand the soccer leagues are required to bring porta potties for their game days. I've noticed those on occasion, but not on a regular basis. What about practice days and all the other visitors to the park? The city has also told me that they are code compliant because there is a restroom facility 1,000 feet from Southwest Community Park at Dunkirk Park across Patterson Road. That's true, but that's measured from the far west curb of the Southwest Community Park, and most of the visitors and sports are played mid-park to the far east of the park. In closing, public restrooms make the park accessible to everyone in the community, including families with young children, the elderly, people with medical conditions, and those with disabilities. Visitors are most likely to stay and enjoy the park for extended periods when they know that convenient restroom facilities are available. And just prior to coming here today, by the way, thank you. The city sent by the Halloween tooting the horns, and all the kids from the park came running to the fence. And I had an opportunity to speak to a parent there, asked how long he's been coming to the park with this child for soccer, a couple years now. I said I was headed to the city to talk about restrooms. He says, great idea. My daughter had to go. I had to run her to a local Del Taco.
Yeah.
Anyways, I want to thank you. Appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you so much for your comments, Michelle. Thank you. Rainey? And Michelle was speaking to the Halloween float we have driving around, right? Yeah.
My husband yelled out, Santa!
Yeah, that's in a couple months.
Wrong season for Santa.
Hi, Rainey. Thank you for coming
Hi
out.
there. Yeah, so I am, I've been involved with the INCO and have been a chair for the Cabrillo neighborhood for a number of years. And our particular neighborhood, and I'm not sure exactly what the scope is of the lights and activities that are being addressed, But as in general, our neighborhood has concerns of the activities that are currently happening there as far as soccer primarily, but other athletic activities happening that maybe the park wasn't really designed for initially. Our residents had requested a passive park, so no barbecue pits, no, very passive. And the turf is being destroyed. And if we added additional time with lighting and that type of thing, I think it would only make it worse. And also with the close proximity of the homes right around the park, that if we extend the time accessible past dusk, it could be, detrimental to the homes around the area. So that's all I had to say.
Rainey, which park? I may have missed it. Which?
Cabrillo.
Cabrillo. Thank you. Arthur Valenzuela?
Good evening, Mayor MacArthur, council members, Basila and Mayor Pro Tem Tehran. I'm here to speak in favor of the lighting for extending park hours for lighting from like sunrise to later times, such as 9 or 10 p.m. I understand that there are a lot of parents who, work until like 5 p.m., can't get their kids to the park until 6, and by this time, around this time of year, it's already dark. And, there's multiple practice that go on depending on age. Usually younger kids would start earlier, and then older, like young adults could also practice after the young kids are done, so they can go finish their homework, go to school, go to sleep, and go to school next day. So just advocating here for that. I would also appreciate if you would consider into permanent lighting for these some of these parks, such as like Southwinds in the future, into a CIP project, or the capital improvement program in the future. I understand there still may be issues with bonds at this time, but I know once we overcome that hump, that could be utilized for future permanent lighting for these parks. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Arthur, for your comments. Diana? And following Diana, we'll go to Luis Torres Martinez.
I'd like to state before I start speaking, as Rainey, I wasn't sure of the whole scope of the meeting, but good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city manager, and staff. My name is Diana Velzi, Chair of Orchard Park Neighborhood. While I begun pulling my neighbors on this issue, that process isn't complete, so I'm speaking here tonight on my own behalf. From what I've seen in the past meetings, the main drive here, and I'm sure it's not the only drive, behind this discussion seems to be the need for sports teams, especially soccer teams without a home field. I understand and respect their challenges, but perhaps that's the real issue we should be addressing directly rather than changing park hours across the board. Not that we're going to do that for sure. If the city chooses to extend park hours, I believe it must be done on a case-by-case basis. It could make sense for sports parks that are already well-lit, designed for evening use, or buffered from homes by schools, parking lots, or other barriers. But it would not work well in neighborhoods like Orchard Park, where homes sit directly alongside the park. Extended hours there would likely bring more noise, traffic, lighting, and late-night activity disrupting nearby residents. Additional lighting would also change the park's warm natural feel and impact both neighbors and wildlife. I do have several questions and concerns. Would the extended hours require installing new lighting in a lot of our parks? And if so, could the city commit to wildlife and light pollution sensitive equipment? How would the city address safety and enforcement after dark? While I support the idea of adding park rangers, that may be a longer-term goal given budget constraints. Has there been any discussion of a pilot program, which I saw tonight, it was in the thing, perhaps testing extended hours at one or two suitable parks before making a citywide change? What would be the funding source for increased maintenance, lighting, or policing? Given the current state of the economy and the likelihood that things might tighten further, I think it's realistic to expect that the city will need to make careful budget choices. Extending park hours may sound simple, but it could bring ongoing costs that we may not be in a position to absorb right now. And finally, will there be additional opportunities for resident input before final decisions are made? And I think I saw that tonight too. I understand the Parks and Recreation Commission has recommended that if hours are extended, they should go no later than 10 p.m. and that apply to all parks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Luis Torres?
Good evening. As a member of the community that enjoys playing soccer after work, I'm in favor of the city ironing out the logistics to establish a mix of turning on existing park lighting in locations like Del Sol Park, unreserved baseball fields, volunteering public schools, opening up College Park fields, and or mobile lighting normally used in events. This will give everyone opportunities for exercise and keep community morale up while the sun sets early. Establishing a sign-in sheet like other recreational opportunities that require upon attendance will help determine what days of the week are more of a priority to allocate the lighting budget accordingly. Additionally, providing lighting on a variety of parks can help prevent exasperated use of any one park via postings online. And as a reminder, sunset will be about 5 p.m. for the foreseeable 4 months. So lighting perhaps up to 7 p.m. could accommodate sports use and residents alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. We'll go to Kyle. And Kyle, you'll be followed by Carla.
Let's see here. Good evening, Mayor, esteemed members. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. My name's Kyle Mitchell. I've been a resident of Oxnard for 4 years as a homeowner, living in the Via Marina neighborhood, and I'm here advocating for the installation of lights in the Via Marina Park. There are multiple, primarily soccer, but also baseball teams that practice in this park several nights throughout the week. Primarily, it seems to be Monday and Wednesday, to include my 2 daughters of 7 and 4 years old. The lack of lights in the park right now is resulting in coaches and other volunteers setting up generators to enable us to practice, as everyone else has mentioned, after dark, as is required by everyone's work schedule. So we believe that installing these lights and keeping them running from sundown to approximately 9 p.m. would alleviate any stresses caused by having to run these generators, which is likely causing the immediate neighbors of the park a little bit of discomfort, as well as resulting in no more vehicles being driven into the park, which obviously increases safety and obviously for everyone else that's in the park. And excuse me, as well as I believe it would increase the morale of the people in the neighborhood, and especially some of the more wayward adolescents that tend to graffiti things in the neighborhood after dark. This would alleviate, or at least extend the hours where their visibility would therefore reduce the probability of them engaging in that, and maybe give them something to do other than graffiti things in the neighborhood. So again, we really appreciate you. I speak on behalf of multiple teams. There's hundreds of kids there using this park for this purpose. And everyone has expressed the same sentiment that I'm displaying. So I really appreciate your time. It would be greatly appreciated if we could get some lights going in there from sundown to approximately 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Carla? And then following Carla's comments, we'll take Roger to come up.
Hi, good evening. Thank you
evening.
to our esteemed panel as well as concerned community members here for the kids usually. I have been a long-time team manager for a soccer team here in Oxnard. My son started at U5. We're at U13 now. We're traveling to San Diego. We're representing Ventura County. We're representing Oxnard. People are going, wow, where are you guys from? We're from Oxnard. So we take great pride in the community that's been behind us the entire time that we've been doing practices, that we've been buying $800 of lighting, and we've been trying to figure out, all right, who's going to charge him this week? Who's going to take him to the park? Who's going to plug him in? Oh no, this one died. Like, hey coach, can we borrow that one? So it's always been very community based. We've always made it work because we've had to. There have been a lot of reports, and I know that the staff report did bring up how woefully underrepresented and underserved our soccer community is currently. I know that report that came out in 2010 did state that we had maybe half of the fields that we needed for the community size that we have. And with the large amount of players and youth athletes that we do have in the region, I think it needs to go beyond the lighting. But we're here for lighting, and we're here for extending the park hours. And I am a full advocate in that, as these are working class families that are working class hours. I have the benefit and privilege of working a 9 to 5. Many of my families don't. They're either working 2 jobs, they're working 2 to 10 p.m., they're working a lot of funky hours. And I feel like extending the park hours is one of the solutions that we could make so that they could at least get out 6 to 8 p.m. They can make practice 7 to 9, 9:30. I am also advocating for permanent lighting in our parks. I know we are doing a pilot program, but I think we really do need to catch up. We need to get some permanent lighting installed, and then, start working on some of the pilot projects to figure out maybe in some of those communities that have more concerned residents, maybe we start piloting there, but we move forward with the permanent lighting where we know we can. I would just like to reiterate that my son's a U13 player. He'll be out of here in 5 years. I would really like these changes implemented before he ages out of being a youth athlete, before I have to worry about him being a young Hispanic male on the streets of Oxnard after nighttime, I'd like for him to continue playing. I'd like for him to play pickup league games and meet up with his friends when they're 19, 20 and, stay out of trouble that way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, absolutely.
Mayor, if the speaker would mind coming back for a very, very brief question. Hearing that you manage soccer teams and have a son who's been involved, I'm wondering if you had a specific park in mind that you were advocating for when you mentioned the permanent lighting. If you wouldn't mind saying into the mic, just a very quick, if you have one in mind or a couple in mind.
Not a specific one. We currently use, I believe one of the residences here is the one that's located behind the new high school. I forget the name of the Cabrillo Park, I think is what it is. So we currently utilize that one. So we're lugging our lights to that one. Permanent lighting there would be fantastic, but I think also next to the airport, I know there's FAA concerns there, but I think that would be an awesome one, as well as the Southwest community. And just South Oxnard in general is so underrepresented. So anywhere there would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely. Thank you. Carla. Go ahead, Roger.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Roger Poirier, Chair of Hobson Park East Neighborhood Council and former Commissioner on the Parks and Recreation Commission. I served for 8 years on the Parks and Rec Commission, and it was a lot of fun. During that time, Eastwood Park got lighting at the initiative of Len Schulman of sainted memory, just died. He's the only chair that I'm aware of, and only resident I'm aware of, who was actually able to get the city to expend Quimby funds in his park. And he got the city to use Quimby funds for Eastwood Park, Carriage Square Quimby funds, for the park lighting. So people can now picnic in Eastwood Park after dark, and you see more activity in that park after dark, even though I don't believe the park hours have changed officially. The real story is Southwinds Park. When Southwinds Park was rehabilitated a few years ago. They included a track, running track, new playgrounds, and lighting. It is amazing lighting. It's worth a visit at dusk to watch the lighting come on at Southwinds Park because it's like you're in a theater and the entire park just lights up. And the police tell me that crime went down 11% after the new park was rehabilitated. The third park that has lighting is Community Center Park East. That's my park. We weren't aware that they were putting in lighting. Wasn't expected. We got a new restroom and a new playground, but they added lighting, but they did not do a very good job. The lighting is it's just too dim. It doesn't have any effect on the ability to actually use the park after dark, and it does nothing for security. Those are the two main reasons you want lighting at a park: to extend recreation hours, which is very worthwhile in a city like Oxnard, which one could say generally doesn't have enough park space for the number of residents we have. So if you are able to extend the availability of recreational areas, then yes, lighting is a recreation expense and it should be considered eligible for Quimby funds, period. That's like almost a no-brainer. But security, particularly for Community Center Park East, that's a really big issue. I did a survey once, just in general on Facebook, what's the most safe, what are the safest parks in Oxnard? And Community Center Park East came up last, most, except recently, we've got less vagrancy and less crime because we have a new restroom and a new playground. And fortunately, Public Works pulled out all the picnic tables there, so there's really no place to commit crimes there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poirier. Thank you. We have one virtual speaker ending in 6004.
Virtual speaker ending in 6004. Please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes starting now. Virtual speaker caller ending in 6004. Please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes starting now.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi, this is Ava Schmidt. I'm calling on behalf of myself and my sister Alexis. So I'm a tennis player. I normally play at Rio Linda Park, Sierra Linda Park, and Wilson Park. I wanted to comment on this issue because at all the parks there's currently an issue with the upkeep. There has been a problem with overgrown weeds, broken fences and gates, broken nets, trash on the course, and also dog waste. I believe it's very important that these facilities that we already have are upkept before the city considers building more facilities. Additionally, the courts are very popular in the northern part of Oxnard, and it would help to disperse the court usage if the courts had lights. Lights will also require maintenance and should be turned off at a certain time each night to not disturb the surrounding neighborhood. A good example of this is Bob Tildy Park in Camarillo is in a residential neighborhood, and they turn on their lights at dusk and turn them off at 9. My sister, Alexis, wanted me to share her comment from her capacity on the East Village Neighborhood Council. East Village currently faces a lot of complaints from residents about the soccer players who use East Village Park. These complaints are about the bright lights that the soccer players set up and the fact that the soccer people park in hazardous manner along Gibraltar and Milagro. Alexis believes that the parking infrastructure issue needs to be solved immediately as it is posing a risk to everyone who travels through that intersection before we encourage extended use of the park. Secondly, she has asked that the residents of East Village can have a forum to give input on the proposed light setup and continuously stay updated on the progress of the project. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We'll now go to Daniel Alvarez, and Daniel will be followed by Bernice Arias.
Buenas tardes, Mayor MacArthur, Mr. Teran, ma'am. My name is Daniel Alvarez. I am the Vice President of the East Side Little League, and I'm here representing the kids that play at Colonia Park. So we have 3 fields at Colonia Park. We have Field 1, Field 2, and a T-ball field, Field 3. We have good lighting at Field number 1, but Field number 2 and 3 are lacking. They're very much in need of good lighting to keep the kids out there, especially during the fall season, because, the time change after that, it's dark and we have to end our practices really early. So I'm here advocating for lights for Colonia Park for Field 2 and Field 3. You know the history of our neighborhood, La Colonia. It's a lot of crime. But we have sports as an option. School, sports, and anything else is not going to be an option for these kids. So I would like to have lights put up at Field 2 and Field 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Bernice? Are there any more public speakers, Madam Clerk, after her?
Chair MacArthur, that concludes our speakers.
Hi, good evening. I am here representing the Orchard Park community. I live, actually, my house and my back neighbor's house are the only 2 houses that are directly attached to Orchard Park. So my concerns with lighting, I'm not opposed to the lighting. I support the lighting. There is a lot of kids that practice their soccer, baseball, and because we're attached to the park, I love hearing it and I support it. However, I am concerned with regards to the lighting and if there will be residential input on that, at least for me and my back neighbor, because our houses are the only 2 houses that are attached to the park. Everybody else is a street away of distance from the park. So if there was to be bright lighting, that would kind of be an issue for our back room. Also, the park has a lot more issues than, I feel like before we start considering lighting, I think that the playground needs a lot of maintenance. There's plywood currently on one side of the playground. The basketball and tennis courts as well. There's potholes in the tennis court and basketball court. And I think like for the children's safety, that should also be something that needs to get fixed. There's large holes that these kids need to be watching out for while playing basketball. And I think before we begin trying to consider lighting for the park, I think that the park itself needs an upgrade, restrooms as well. And again, not opposed to the lights. I would just like some input on the lighting for me and my back neighbor, maybe closer to our house's softer lighting versus the rest of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just to confirm, Madam Clerk, that concludes the public speakers in person or virtual?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. That concludes our speakers virtually and in person.
And thank you. And just to inform those here in the audience, we're not necessarily taking a decision here tonight. We just want to, we offer this workshop to be informed as to what the thought is by all of you who are present here. And also, there are a number of individuals who wrote in some comments that are also attached, and we consider those as well. I know many of you know my position. Actually, when running my campaign, I ran on the position of, I think the system we have in place, I think it's antiquated. I think it's long overdue, where our parks close when it gets dark. And I think that's a challenge. I think that goes directly against what we should be doing. We should have our parks being utilized. There's a number of people that here spoke about, I think Mr. Poirier spoke about, we need more parks, clearly, to accommodate the number of people that we have here. And sports it offers so much, not only for exercise, for their health, but certainly the interface that they have with other kids their age, families to connect. It strengthens bonds for community. And much like I think other speakers spoke about, and those kids that are at risk, I mean, sports offers just that opportunity. There's so much benefits for it. And I think it's long overdue, and I think we have to switch that around where we need to make sure that our parks don't close when it gets dark. Particularly right now when sunset starts hitting right around 5:30, and it'll be that way. And all the challenges the challenges that it poses, much like Kyle mentioned. You're having teams go out there and setting up their generators, which pose a hazard as well, not only for the noise affecting some of the residents, but the volunteer hours that go along with that. You can imagine it takes an hour to set up all these lights and an hour to take them down. That's a lot to ask for parents and volunteers. And so we should be supporting our community to go out there and have parks that are accessible to them, where we can support them exercising, having practice, having not only, we're talking about just soccer, but baseball, football, as well as our community members that just simply want to go and exercise, our elderly members of our community that want to walk around the track. I think Mr. Poirier mentioned the Southwinds Park, which should be as an example. So I am, where I stand on this issue. I think that this is long overdue, and I'm certainly in favor of us looking at a pilot to see, especially now with the advancement in technology with LED lighting, being able to support that in the parks with LED lighting. But I think to inform this decision, we do need input to differentiate between, much like Diana mentioned, are we talking community parks? Are we talking neighborhood parks? And what does that look like? Because we also have to be considered, much like the lady spoke about with her homes backing right into the park, which she's supporting of lights, but also we have to be considerate of her, her living arrangement as well. But we do need, I think, Carla, you brought up excellent points, and I think we should be supportive of that. Soccer is huge here, and the city manager, I praise him for hearing me out early on when I took office, and he and I had a very robust conversation. I expressed to him one of my primary initiatives is to do just that, is to change the ordinance, flip it to where we don't close parks at dark, to flip that around, and also to start exploring how we can fund lighting, as well as the other items that all of you have mentioned, the upkeep, the maintenance, the bathrooms and so forth. Those are, comprehensively, that's what ultimately we need to do, and that's what we need to get at. So those are just my initial thoughts on this item. I'll turn it over to any one of you if you want to make some comments or ask some questions, some clarifying questions of Mr. Wolf on this item.
You want to take it first? You take it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate all the speakers coming out and sharing their input on this. I was taking notes on all of them, and I will say that one of my reasons for asking one of the speakers about a specific park was because there was certainly support for lighting, but she was also someone who stated she was directly involved in soccer. And I was just curious which of the parks that they utilize that she might have felt just off the cuff might be a good candidate. At the same time, I believe she had mentioned East Village Park because she said it was behind the new high school, so it's Del Sol High School. So that's my thought on that, but I could be wrong because Cabrillo is just east of Oxnard High School. But I note there were two speakers from those neighborhoods who state that they tend to be overutilized when it comes to sports practice. And so I was really hoping to find some overlap there where there was some folks who were happy with and okay with the sports practices and games happening in their neighborhood park, and sports participants who were saying that, oh yeah, we really like this park and the people are really nice and this would be great to have pilots for lighting. So it didn't really land on that. I do appreciate the mention about Colonia Park by Mr. Alvarez. And if we're looking at piloting for sports lighting and there's already the lights there for Field 1, I would certainly be interested in seeing what we could do to meet that need, if it's through this pilot project or if it's adding it to the CIP for permanent lighting at that park, because baseball's not a new thing there. It's been there for a number of generations. And so to hear that the lighting is inadequate for 2 of the 3 fields, I think at least the other large field we could look at for that. Going back to my notes here, there were a lot of important comments that were brought up. I note that in the staff report for the potential spots for piloting sports field lighting, Southwest Community Park was in there, and there's already activities there. There's already people bringing private lights there. It's also a little bit removed from a neighborhood, but then I believe it's Miss Marshall, right? Or Miss Kimball, excuse me. Miss Kimball made the important point that there are no public restrooms there. They're across the street at Dunkirk Park, which is a significant distance if you're on the far east end of that park. So I'm really struggling to find something that's going to work here. I certainly support it in concept. I agree with what a lot of speakers said, that the more opportunities we have for young people to participate in something positive, whether it's through sports or coaching sports or being involved in somewhere, just going to the park because it's inviting after it gets dark, then great. But I also want to try and find some kind of balance in our neighborhood parks, which are typically surrounded on all sides by residential homes and single-family homes and apartments. And so I'm looking at the list and I'm racking my brain, what's going to work? And I'm hoping that maybe staff, after we do some comments and rounds of questions here, can share a little bit about how they landed on the parks that are considered thus far. I know it's in the staff report, but just so the public can hear. And maybe that can help us get to this next step here. My ultimate hope for staff here is I'm hoping that we can find a neighborhood, if we're going to pilot this, a neighborhood that already has a strong existing neighborhood council, because they will need to be integral partners in this as we move forward to the next steps. And proposing it to the council and the residents, having additional opportunities for public input and them seeing each step of the way, having their concerns heard, their questions answered, and then having that come back to this committee. So I apologize, I have no answer at this point. I was taking lots of notes, hoping that we'd land on like maybe one park to look at. But I mentioned one that certainly in Colonia that would be a good fit at this point, but I'm a little stuck at this point, going beyond that. So for right now, those are my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilwoman Pasua?
Thank you. I want to thank all the speakers, and I know we received some public comment. Thank you very much. I want to disclose something. I do sit on the Oxnard United Soccer Board. I am a treasurer. I'm a board member. My daughter has been playing club soccer since she was 5. She did AYSO for 2 years. Then we moved over to soccer. Now she's playing in college. And I have the love of soccer in my blood. So I support lighting, but I'm going to name all the parks where my daughter practiced over the last 15 years, and these are all the parks where we got kicked out of. Via Marina Park, East Park, Windrow Park, South Bank Park, Orchard Park, East Village Park, College Estates Park, Oxnard Community Center, Cabrillo Park, Sierra Linda, Southwest Community Park, Marina West. She also played softball. We've been at Beck Park, West Village Park. The surrounding neighbors in my 47 years here in Oxnard like their peace and quiet after a certain time. And I want to make sure that we, as a council, understand that soccer is huge in Oxnard. We want to support soccer, but we have a responsibility to be good neighbors. And I want that to be my message today. I want to be a good neighbor. I want to support soccer. I want to support baseball. And I'm going to go to the baseball, and I'm going to go to the lack of other amenities, infrastructure in our current parks that we do need to fix. I'm a big advocate of fixing what we have now and then adding. So we have, previous council, my other council members, we've asked for this to go to back to the rec. It's gone back to them. It's very unpopular within the neighborhoods that the lighting is going to be around. We know that. You know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. We know it's unpopular. We know community members get home from work, 6, 7, you know, they don't like the generators, they don't like the noise. And my other thing, and this is so true, I'm just gonna say it. Anybody after 8 p.m., it's adults drinking and playing soccer. Come on, let's be realistic. That's what it is. I am not a fan, especially when my daughter was 13, 14, and I'm gonna be very, very transparent. Girls are developing, and then you've got, love the soccer community, but the drinking, I'm not okay with. And then what happens? We have to call our police department, and I would actually be curious, how many calls for service for that do we have? Because I know when my daughter was there, the parents would get mad. Why are they drinking? Why are they this? Why are they that? Love the soccer community, but my personal thought process is kids need to be home at a certain time, homework, dinner, and I love sports, and maybe I'm going to go on a little tangent, but our community needs to also know, yeah, we will get a Michael Jordan out of this neighborhood, but if your kids don't have the grades, they ain't going to college. And I'm a big advocate of this. We have a lot of soccer, lots of talent coming out of Oxnard. We're not sending our kids to college. We are not sending them to college. They need those grades. They need their rest. They need those A's. They need to go to Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA. They need to go. They are more than capable. So we as a community, we have a responsibility to those kids, not only to make sure that they are being coached, that they have the facilities and over to practice, but we also have a responsibility to make sure that they're at school and they're doing their work. Me personally, my daughter's getting a B or a C in school, she ain't playing soccer. That's me personally. I see all these teams going over the hill. They're in Oxnard. Now they're playing for somebody over the hill. They promised them the world, and guess what? Nothing happens. There is more to this. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is not new to those of us that have been on the council before. We've done this research. I do want to hear from staff on why they chose these parks. I have a bit of a concern. The report states that the solar lighting will not work, so we understand that. A pilot program at Southwest Community Park, I would love to see that park just get redone with real lights, but as Ms. Kimball said, there's no bathrooms. So before we do lights, we need the bathrooms. I am not opposed to trying to see where this pilot program goes, but I want us to be realistic. I want us, Colonia Park, gentleman mentioned, Daniel, correct? Daniel mentioned he has areas within the baseball that is currently there that we should fix also. Baseball's important. Baseball's important, basketball's important, pickleball's important, tennis is important. Every single sport is important. I've got a lot of love for soccer. I'm still involved. I just finished watching my daughter play her last game as a junior, today. She scored, yay. But, I cannot preach enough. We have so much talent here in our community. And we as parents and as leaders, as coaches, as mentors. If we really, really care, we need to push school on them. If they have the ability to go and get scholarships, there's a lot of money out there. It is not expensive if these kids have talent to go. That's where our focus needs to be. And the focus means they should be at home by 8:30 having dinner and hitting those bucks, because that's what needs to happen. And I might be the unpopular one here tonight, but I'm supportive. I'm extremely supportive, but I want us to be realistic. Most importantly, I want us to be good neighbors. Being good neighbors is a must, because that's what we teach our kids. And those are my comments, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know you're excited. Yeah, we always exercise some decorum, because, we also don't want people booing. They hear something that is not favorable, so we also shy away from clapping. We can do this, do that. One second, Mayor Pro Tem. I think Angela Whitecomb, you wanted to come speak on the item. Go ahead.
I'm sorry I didn't sign up. I thought it was going to be more of an open conversation as opposed to a formal conversation. I'm Angela Whitecomb. I'm the chair for the Parks and Recreation Commission. We did send we did a lot of research on this item, and we did send a recommendation, and the recommendation was for park lighting in community parks to definitely be done by 10 p.m. 10 p.m. I thought was kind of late, but I was trying to accommodate more of the games, not so much the practice at that time. But also with park lighting, I want to make sure that it's understood that we weren't just talking about athletic lighting. We were also talking about the importance of having the walking trails be lit. And that's at a much lower level, more of an ambient lighting. It's good if you can see across and see where people are. And so that people can get out of their homes when they get off. I mean, we all know that it gets dark at 5 soon. And people get off of work, and you'd like to be able to take your dog for a walk and just go out and use your amenities that the city provides, and having that opportunity open to you. We also I heard tonight about cars driving onto the parkways at night to do generators and lighting, and I'm like, oh, wow. I don't want to say that, it's great to have the kids practicing, but I'm also thinking about the sprinklers and the abuse on our facilities, because they're not meant to be driven on. Even I get mad at parks when they drive on Plaza Park because the grass is wet and they get big old divots. I mean, if I'm going to yell at the parks department, I'm going to be twice as mad at my neighbors for not taking care of the park and driving on those facilities. And I understand the need and piloting a program, but I think having the appropriate lighting and doing it case by case is really, really important. And I agree with you, Ms. Pessoa. I mean, there's got to be limits, and we have to be good neighbors. And as a commission, it took us a really long time to give you that recommendation and a lot of research. It wasn't something that we just went, maybe, okay, we're going to do this. No, there was a lot of thought and community input that went into that recommendation. I'd really hope that you guys take it seriously and come back to us if you have questions. We're here at your will, and thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Councilwoman Basua's comments as well. It added a few layers for me, but there are a few things I left out in my comments also. We did receive a few written comments, and I did note that another Parks and Recreation Community Services Commissioner, Mr. Joe Garcia, sent us a fairly comprehensive comment with all of his reasoning for his comment. Overall, stating that he was opposed to a number of the things that were on this agenda item, but he also did come with his thoughts and solutions. One being community and regional parks should have the hours changed only versus neighborhood parks, which is some of the focus we've had this evening. As Chair Whitecomb had mentioned, walkway lighting for safety issues at the parks should also be a priority, for especially those that currently don't have lighting. Upgrading or adding restrooms for regional or community parks, and then add more green space for organized youth. And that leads to something else I had a note here. And when it comes to additional green space, we are limited in, we can't just keep adding more and more open space in parks. I mean, we could, but we'd also have to maintain them. But there's also areas that are earmarked for other development, commercial, residential, which will bring open space with them, but that's a number of years down the road. But because of my recusal from items having to do with school districts, because of my full-time day job, I can't give direction to staff to go explore joint use agreements with the school districts. But I do want to point out for the public here that that's something that other communities do in an agreement between the districts and the cities in utilizing the open space that the schools have for something like this. And it's different how it's structured. A very broad statement is that they may have an agreement that the city will do the programming and help with the cost of maintenance, et cetera, on the field that's used and owned by the school district. So anyway, just throwing that out there when we're talking about how to add more space. And the last two items here, we did have the speaker from Orchard Park who had asked about the playground equipment. I actually just presented to them last week, and happy to share that the playground is out to bid and will be replaced in the coming calendar year. We did have a little bit of conversation about tennis courts as well when I was there, and I think the roof of the restroom too. And lastly, for Mr. Alvarez, I didn't give him a shout out for being here when the World Series is like actively being played right now, and he even came in his Dodgers gear, although he has headphones on, I think, so maybe that's what he's listening to. Yeah, okay, so you're not missing much then by being here. All right, thank you for being here though. So a question I'll have then for staff, if we're ready to go to that, Mayor, to move this to the next steps here, is if we can talk a little bit about the neighborhood versus regional versus community parks. And I know there's acreage and things, but if we can boil that down and really just looking at some of the questions that have been posed thus far about how we can, what's a logical path to go down to move this to the next steps here. So I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, and I think Mr. Wolf has something.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Good evening, Committee Chair. And what I would think would be a good place to start is kind of go over some of the information that's in the staff report, because I think it sets up the question that's being asked. So as you heard, there's lots of places that, or there's not a lot of places that we have that have lights. And so the first part of the staff report defines those places that already have programmed places for sports activities that are done through our Cultural and Community Services Department that have lights. And then we have a few places, a few parks in the city that don't have lights but are programmed for sports activities. With that, we took those places and then we looked at where are some of these makeshift activities occurring. And we worked with our code enforcement team, we worked with our park staff, and with our cultural and community services staff, and we asked, well, where's some of this stuff already occurring anyway? And the idea here is trying to figure out, okay, if we're looking at this from a sort of a pilot project perspective and focusing in on just the sports lighting, because again, the staff report's written for sports lighting and walkway lighting, so it's not just a sports lighting staff report. If we looked at just the sports lighting component of this, we said if it's already happening on a sort of a makeshift approach, and we wanted to see if we were going to do a pilot project, and the idea here is to get the feedback from, okay, what is if it's already happening, what's the feedback if that was going to be a permanent place for this to occur? In the staff report, we identify that the cost of permanent installation is very expensive. We're talking about to the tune of $1 million, give or take, depending on the amount of lights. Obviously, we have to meet certain requirements, certain liability requirements in terms of the amount of lighting that we have to have in parks, from a insurance and a tort claim liability responsibility, so we can't just put out lights that don't meet certain standards. And so when we look at the standards of lights for permanent installation, it's very expensive. So when we looked at, well, what's our opportunity to get feedback without permanent installation, we looked at potentially renting some lights. What we didn't want is to rent lights that have generators, because that's sort of a false sense of reality in terms of getting feedback from the community. And I think Councilwoman Basua mentioned like the good neighbor kind of perspective. Like we wanted to get some honest feedback if we were going to go down this path, right? And so we put together some options of, okay, well, if we're going to rent lights, let's find a place that we can rent lights that are hardwired. And so Mr. Hallett was able to identify a few places. So that's in the staff report as well. So we wanted to go down a path of setting up a pilot project for a sports field. We picked a few parks. So the parks that are listed, except for Southwest Community Park, because Southwest Community Park is the only one on that list that's a non-neighborhood park. That was the idea, is that these are places that are already either have in the past or currently have those makeshift activities going on anyway. Is that really going to give us a true opportunity to get the neighborhood feedback if we wanted to do these kinds of sports lighting in neighborhood parks? The reason why Southwest Community Park is on the list is because it's set up to actually get lights. I mean, with the exception of not having restrooms, it's set up, I mean, it's large enough to house sports activities and to receive lights. It's just a question of prioritizing that installation over other things that need to happen across the city, across the parks. So it's on the list, and if you notice, we put in the staff report that says that this might just be a place where we install lights rather than doing a pilot project. So that's the reason how we got to those locations. That's in the staff report.
What about, as far as Southwest Community Park? We know we don't have any restrooms. We know that, again, if you go there, I mean, it is used, the field is almost dirt, but then there's a proximity to the airport. When putting sports lighting, is that going to be an issue with the airport?
So we did make a note in the staff report that may require FAA approval, and so, or they may deny it. So there's not any certainty with that location of receiving lights. So we actually had to deal with the FAA for Campus Park. Mm-hmm. So we are getting very close to bidding out Campus Park. That had to go through FAA approval as well. So there are some definite processes that would have to be looked at from an FAA approval standpoint.
So if I may, I would just like to make comments in regards to the parks that staff said or is recommending a pilot program. Let's see, we have, I'm looking for the slide. Well, I know it's Southwest, Connolly Park, and then we had Pleasant Valley Park. I have not been to Connolly Park in recent, but I've gone to Southwest a lot and Pleasant Valley. And I will tell you, yes, Pleasant Valley Park, which is part of my district, gets a lot of use, but it also has infrastructure that I think the community would appreciate that we focus on. The basketball courts and the tennis courts. We got the playground, thank you very much, but those are, if I was to advocate, I'd advocate at least for Pleasant Valley to restore our infrastructure to be able to use it, and then go out to the community, see whether or not the lighting there, because those homes are really close, and you've got them in all ways. Parking, hit and miss. So that is my comment there, Southwest. And which other park was on that list? I can't. South Winds.
And Beck Park.
And Beck Park. Okay, so if I may, in South Winds, I've also been to South Winds a lot. It's awfully small. So that's my comment on that one. I mean, you're talking about maybe one field there. And then you have Beck Park. My daughter played softball in Beck Park. We've got lots of homeless activities. We have a school nearby. We have Santa Clara on one side. We have St. Anthony's on another. That might be doable, but we have Kamala, St. Anthony's, and Santa Clara, and then we have Holmes. I'm very familiar with that area. I spent many, many times working the snack bar there. My daughter played softball there. And again, the grass in that area is really mud, to say the least. Then we have that. Are we going to close these parks down for a maintenance period? I mean, they're going to get destroyed. So I'm not sure that by doing a good, we're actually doing worse. So
if you don't mind, I would add to that, because we did address that in the staff report. So most of these parks that aren't designed to be sports parks are seeing this because they aren't designed to be sports parks. They don't have the correct drainage. They don't have the correct type of turf. They aren't. They don't have rest periods like some of our sports fields. And so you see this kind of usage when you see these unprogrammed activities happening. You see the result of that usage. So if we are going to be doing a pilot project, it would need to then follow our traditional sports field maintenance process, by which you would be seeing rest periods for the fields, overseeding, all that stuff that would go with our typical sports field. So that means that those parks would see a reduction in use in certain times of the year and not an increase in use, because you can't have those fields from a liability standpoint. If we are going to program them specifically for these kinds of activities, we'd have to address it from a different standpoint.
So we rest our fields during the winter, because I know right now we are in season with our club teams, so our fields are being used, and then we rest them for a period of 2 months? More?
Committee members, I'm sorry. Steve Hallett, Assistant Public Works Director. For our primary, when we're talking about the soccer fields, so the College Park soccer fields and the Del Sol Soccer Stadium, we close those fields 3 times a year for 6 to 8 weeks. 3 times a year to get them some time to recover. That does have challenges though, because even though we chain and lock those fields, they still get broken into on a regular basis, especially at College Park. We had to buy cases of locks just because we were going through them that fast. And so there's definitely a demand and desire to use these fields, but there's also a need when there's this much use on these fields to get them to rest. And as Director Wolf was saying, you get into a neighborhood park that wasn't designed for this type of activity or cannot be secured when we're trying to get the fields to rest, then it creates a problem of excessive wear and tear on the turf.
If I may also continue my comments, have we thought about synthetic? I mean, although I know for soccer players it gets really hot and then their cleats and they complain and the burning, but have we thought about maybe looking at a pilot where we can do synthetic, and that way they can get more use out of it? Because our grasses, we're gonna have to rest the fields. A lot of maintenance is gonna go into them. We're doing more harm than good. So what is an alternative? Because, I mean, we're gonna do a pilot program, but then, no, you can't use the fields for 6 weeks. And we're gonna do that for 3 times a year. Kind of defeats the purpose. So, have we looked at cost in order to do that?
Committee members, we have not applied cost to this particular workshop, but I have run the numbers multiple times in my Parks and Recreation career. It is difficult to pencil out because artificial turf is significantly more expensive than real turf. Additionally, there is a significant amount of maintenance. Now, you would think because we're not growing or mowing it that there would be less maintenance, but in fact, you do have to install an irrigation system for artificial turf to wash it down, cool it off. There's also maintenance for keeping the fibers upright, whether it be rubber or sand, and brushing. Vandalism and just wear and tear over time. So the useful life of synthetic turf, I think, is between 8 and 12 years. And then there's the cost and disposal and replacement. We do have one artificial turf area in our city parks, and that's East Village Park. And that has been completely worn out, and we are in discussions with the school district right now because that is technically on their property, and we have a joint use agreement with them. And so we're having discussions with them on, do we want to replace it? And so to take back what I said earlier, we did get cost estimates for that. And so for the artificial turf, I believe it's around $700,000 to replace that artificial turf versus if we take out the artificial turf and put in grass, then it would be under $300,000. And then the benefit of grass is it can heal and recover and grow. Whereas if you tear a piece of artificial turf or have to replace, there will always be a patch there. Whereas grass, if you can keep people off it, you can get it to heal and be playable again.
Yeah, and just a comment in regards to East Village Park. They jumped the fence because it's at, it's at a lower level. We never did it, by the way, but yes, that fence. And then also, people, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure, back a few years ago, people would show up around noon to just take up some of the field space and have for their practice fields. So I know it's a very popular location, and I also know the neighbors hate it. So I would just be, I just don't want to be closing parks. We already close our premium fields, what we call our premium fields. We already closed them. And then to add more to that list, I just don't think it's effective. I'm just trying to figure out how do we keep it open, all year around, and, try to do this pilot program where it's beneficial.
Mr. Wolf, were you going to say something?
I just wanted to add the one curveball that comes with synthetic turf is that, not relatively new, but the newer piece of information, which is the forever chemicals, the PFAS that's in the synthetic turf, just a new curveball with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the time.
Of course. Just to restate my position, I think we're already here. I think it's long overdue that we start looking at putting lights at parks. I think it comes with a lot of benefits, whether we like it or not. I mean, we can all drive around the city and see that people already have makeshift ways of going to the park. They're utilizing them anyway. So why not do it in a way where we are supporting that by putting lights? I agree. Other cities do it. I think we're really behind on it. When you look at, we're the 22nd biggest city in this whole state, and you look at we're a mecca for sports here in this city, and we should be supporting that instead of going backwards. So I think there's a way to push forward. And then I think we also need to consider the maintenance and the bathrooms and so forth. But just because we're not there yet doesn't mean we should absolutely dismiss the fact that we need lights at the parks. Because whether or not, much like Kyle mentioned, whether we put lights or not, they're still utilizing them. So they're not being closed down at all. They're still going to be utilized. But I think it really, putting lights at the park, it gives us an opportunity to really assess their use, and then we can start figuring out, okay, I think parents are responsible. I think most parents will take their kids, finish practice at 6, 7 at night or whatever, and go home and do their homework and eat. We see lights all the time throughout the city with high schools. So there's high schools in every sector in the city. You see lights up because teams are practicing at the high school level. They're having games on Friday nights and so forth. So you already see that. So I think we should support that too, not only for sports teams, but for our older members of our community that need to exercise, and to just have a very robust, modern city that promotes recreation and utilization of our parks for all the benefits that it has. We can't say we want our kids involved in activities when we don't support those efforts. So that's my position. I'm open to the idea of, I think the recommendations made by staff on looking at these, 5 locations: Southwest Community Park, Pleasant Valley, South Winds, Beck, Connolly, are excellent examples to start with, to look at that. To start with the lights, for pathway lights and also for field use lights. And then from there, move on to the next steps of the pilot program, which is to have just a survey, just inquire with the neighborhood councils there, with the residents, and see what, see what the experience is like, and then have that inform the decision. Doesn't mean this is permanent, but we have to start somewhere. We really do, and I think once we move in that direction, then we've started seeing the utilization, then we can entertain the idea of, okay, do we need bathrooms? If we can't do a permanent bathroom, can we do portables? What does that cost us? But move the conversation forward, otherwise we're gonna just be stagnant, like we've been for the last, 30, 40 years. And I think the recommendation, from one of the CAG members mentioned, well, just change the ordinance. I'm not so sure changing the ordinance will do, by saying, well, you can use the park, up to 10 o'clock at night, because there's no lights, So you need lights for, otherwise it presents another problem for policing and everything else. So I just think I'm glad we're here having this robust conversation. I'm glad all of you came out to inform this decision, but Basil brings up a great point, is we have to be considerate of our neighbors as well. But I think we have to start somewhere. I think we've all experienced, many of us have kids who play sports, we ourselves utilize the parks. So I think we have lights at the parks, then we'll deal with the other issues that come up. Once we have a survey, and not to say it's gonna be permanent on these 5 locations, if one turns out not to be a good fit, then that's fine. We'll move along, but we should be moving along, not going backwards. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. A quick question, and then just some direction for staff on this. Looking at the staff report, the pilot program that we're looking at for lighting and programming, correct me if I'm wrong on this, the actual programming piece of this for the pilot would be programmed by our Cultural Community Services staff, is that correct?
The programming component would be all the infrastructure, be Public Works, but the programming component would have to be ran through the Culture and Community Services, because they're the ones that mostly program the sports activities in the parks.
Okay, so it wouldn't just be first come, first serve league that shows up to the park with lights to do what they want there, right? It would actually, there would be structure to it, and how the programming would happen, at what times, on what days, with whom, controlled essentially by city staff, is that correct?
That is the intent, yes.
Okay, so there is actually a department and essentially a person who would be the contact for programming for those in the neighborhood.
That's the intent, yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so my thoughts on this, I was here looking at the, thank you for attaching the grids for all the quadrants from the master plan, that was helpful. I was looking at acreage and then trying to cross-reference that with who I know has a neighborhood council. So I'm wondering if the following neighborhood councils could be approached for discussion on this. Not saying they're committing to, yes, bring lights as a pilot program to our park, but introducing it to those neighborhood councils and those residents to have this discussion in that setting. So, and these are the ones that had a lot of acreage for the neighborhood parks. So I have Orchard Park, Pleasant Valley Park, which was already on the list, Rio Lindo Park, Johnson Creek Park, Lemonwood Park, and Beck Park. And I believe Beck Park, within the Kamala neighborhood, I believe that the chair has been looking for ways to engage his neighborhood in coming to the meetings and reestablishing that neighborhood council. This may be something that would be a great catalyst for that, for that discussion and bringing folks back out to that meeting. So anyhow, I wanted to throw those out there. I'm hoping that staff will consider approaching those neighborhood councils and seeing about getting on the agenda to talk about what we talked about here tonight, and throw out the idea of the pilot, of the lights. If there's soccer already happening, it seems that they have acreage already, and how can this be done in a very controlled way to have them be good neighbors? And I will say, as a former neighborhood council chair, and this is side note, but when this housing department came to me back in 2018, I believe, and said that they were going to bring the shelter, the homeless shelter, back to our neighborhood after they had told us the year prior that was the last year. I told them, don't have to convince me, come to my neighborhood council and you have to answer every question, hear every concern. And it was many hours that meeting, but to their credit, they heard everything, and that helped shape what they were able to do. And that program has been ongoing since then in my neighborhood. It's about to move, but they've programmed it well. And so I think that this at least can initiate that discussion so you can get a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or let's talk more from the residents at least. So those are my comments, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Councilwoman, go ahead.
Yeah, so when the mayor was making his comments, he mentioned the high schools. And then my light bulb went on. He said the lights are on at the high school at night.
Yeah.
And they are. So would we not be able to approach the high school? And, I mean, they already have the lights. And maybe they can allow city use?
You can't possibly be thinking you're going to send me to talk to the high school.
I sure was.
So we can have,
I'm
we
just
can have a
thinking-
further discussion about this with regard to actual joint use agreements that cities have, that we and other cities have on paper, and then actual participation of joint use agreements. I think there's a conversation that needs to be had there, but I really strongly believe that that needs to be led by members of the city council.
No, I would agree. So my thought process was, I mean, because we're talking soccer practice, right? Like soccer practice.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have, as it is, we're not allowed to have games in these, in the parks anyways, right? So we're talking about, maybe we could do something, maybe we as council members can reach out to the union school district. Like, I know, Gabe, I'm putting you in a hard spot here because you can't do that. But maybe the mayor and I can go out to the high school and say, hey, time is changing, and that's when we really see all the lights and the generators. How much would it cost for our residents to rent these fields? And do they have the capability of doing that?
So we'd be happy to put together some background research with regard to the public purpose of public school facilities, because it's not just, in this case, it wouldn't be just the grass fields. You're talking the potential of swimming pools that could be open for youth and seniors at various hours. You're talking about indoor basketball courts, and you're talking about track and field. I mean, there are public amenities there that we would agree deserve to have a update and review about public access and what is a reasonable amount of time to be expected for public access.
No, absolutely. And my light bulb just went on when the mayor said that about the high schools and the lights being on already. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, they are on, especially Friday nights for games. Oxnard, CI, Wainimi. I know Del Sol doesn't have anything. Pacifica, Rio Mesa. Why can't our youth use those facilities? Mayor, your comments just brought that to my mind.
You know, I think this warrants a further conversation. One of the things that I have already done is spoken with the high school district about the utilization of the gymnasiums, because we're talking about soccer. The gymnasiums to further indoor soccer, because there's such a shortage of that here in this city. And so we are furthering those discussions, particularly just for the access to the gymnasiums. I know the stadiums and so forth, that presents other problems. But we've had those discussions, but we can certainly explore that further.
I mean, the infrastructure's there, and you're right, Mayor. The lights are on, the infrastructure's there. They're only being, I mean, I see them on Friday nights, I'm not sure. Or soccer, when soccer starts for the high school, which is gonna start here shortly, they're on. My light bulb, sorry guys, my light bulb, when the mayor said that, I was like, well, why can't we use them?
And my point being, well, not only that, my point being about the lights, that the lights are on. And those that live around those neighborhoods, just like me, live by Pacific High School, you know, they're light. And we know that. So I'm just saying that, that we are already exposed to lights around us because of the high schools, particularly this time on Friday night games, and particularly during the time in, with the time changing coming up. They're practicing football, soccer, baseball out there, so the lights are on Monday through Friday at these various high schools. So I'm just saying that we are accustomed to that. So my position is I think we should move forward with I don't know if any of you are ready to make a motion or if you want to give further direction to staff on this issue. I'm sorry, Mr. Wolf, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I guess before we get to a motion, we certainly can bring this back. This was really just the workshop, and there's not necessarily an intent from my perspective to give a motion.
Okay.
We heard the feedback. The piece of information that I think is still, at least I would like, is there's any parks that the committee would like us not to look at. So we have some recommendations from committee member Turan to look at and go to the neighborhood council, so we definitely can do that. We have a parallel conversation with the school districts. But if there's any place that you want us to steer away from, we can do that. The intent with this feedback is for us to bring something back to the committee and to say, this is what we heard. Here's some very more specific pieces of information, and then make a strong recommendation based on what we heard that then can potentially go to the council.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't completely aware whether we need to make a motion or not, but if I'm understanding this correctly, because I think you identified all the parks that I see that get the most utilization with Southwest Community Park, Rio Lindo, Camino del Sol, East Village, West Village, Central Park, and then also for the other pilot consideration is adding Pleasant Valley, South Windsback, and Connolly. But are you saying that this is we're just workshopping this, hearing from the public, and this warrants maybe further discussion? Because I'm also committed to going out to the various neighborhoods and having those robust discussions with the neighborhood chairs and residents of those neighborhoods to make sure that they are in support of this, and if they have some opposition, they consider those points and see if we can entertain them, and just getting an overall survey about what the overall sentiment is from those communities. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. And did you have something, Councilwoman, or?
I wanted just to ask, you mentioned some parks. Are you requesting that they be added to the list, or those are the parks that you would like to see? And that was one question. And then I had a question for the mayor. Mayor, specifically for the lights, is it just soccer related? I mean, and the reason I'm asking is because obviously soccer, you need a bigger area. And I'll tell you, like Lindenwood Park,
well, not
it's
necessarily,
big.
because you have, like Carla mentioned, or you mentioned, you have five-year-old kids. So if you have, in some parks, they don't have to be that big. If you have 5-year-old kids, you only have essentially 5 kids for that team. So you may have a number of kids that are 5-year-old kids. So we're not talking about, 17-year-old kids playing and they need a big field. Most of the teams, I think the bulk of them are 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids. So you don't need a big space necessarily. And I think people will accommodate. So for example, you have Beck Park, well, naturally, you're going to have maybe older kids go there. Via Marina, you may have the 9, 10, 11-year-old kids. But typically, soccer is like a hierarchy. People start washing out because they're playing the high school level. But I think the bulk of, and you see AYSO, a lot of the community leagues, the bulk of the engagement is 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids, which don't utilize a lot of space.
No, they don't utilize a lot of space, but my whole thing is those kids aren't the ones that are practicing at 8, 9 p.m.
Well, no, but but their parents are coming home from work. It's like Carla mentioned, they're coming home from work at 6 o'clock, or if they get here, and so they need, the coach needs to set up practice at 6:30 for an hour. And I think the argument is, hey, look, it really commits parents to go out there and set up lights an hour before to accommodate the practice, and then have to stay an hour later, sometimes with their own kids, waiting while they take the lights down. Whereas if we had some lights, they can just show up to practice at 6 o'clock, be done by 7:30, they're done. And I think this is why it's a pilot, and we can assess whether we need to go to 10 o'clock. If so, maybe you have some older parents walking the track, doing so forth. But we can always assess, but I think we need a starting point.
Okay, so I totally agree with the mayor and Gabe, but I would really like to see you bringing this back after you go out and talk to the neighborhood chairs and the neighborhoods that it's going to affect. Because we don't even have a funding source, right? There's nothing at this point. So I think it's really important that we get feedback from those community members that are going to be impacted the most. And we just, come back to the committee with those findings.
And I just want to be respectful of all the parents that came out and voiced their opinions, as well as like the CAG members, like Angela and others that have made and studied this and made these recommendations, to hear them and to act on it. But also hearing Diana as well and her concerns. So we'll make a very balanced decision. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And just to answer your question, Councilwoman, yes, I was asking that the neighborhoods I mentioned be approached, because I know they have a neighborhood council, to initiate discussions and be on an agenda for their neighborhood to talk about what we talked about here tonight and discuss it. And the reason I came up with those parks is because of acreage, solely because of acreage. And like Connolly Park I see here was 3.1 acres, where Pleasant Valley Park is 3 times that size. And I know that includes the benches and the playground and everything, but just acreage based on open space and turf is going to be large, and maybe they would be willing to accommodate. And they would have the firsthand account on what is parking like, in the high traffic times for when practice would happen and people are coming home. What does it look like on weekends if I don't think there's practice weekends. Obviously, I'm not an athlete, but those are the ones I came up with because of their size, and I knew they had neighborhood councils. So that's my direction. Thank you.
Also, Commander, I know you're here. Do you have any input at all on maybe a security issue, anything as we're workshopping this item?
No, I think we're in the early stages of this. We haven't even got it off the ground. But I think hopefully when we actually get it off the ground, we start a pilot program, then we can look at, whatever it is regarding public safety, whether it's calls for service, noise disturbances, subjects loitering. But I think it's kind of early on for us to, add any input, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, because just to add to the commander's point, I mean, right now in the books, as it stands, it's actually against our city ordinance to access the parks when it gets dark. I don't think we really act on it a whole lot of times, but there are some residents that do call and request police to go out there because there are generators being utilized, which is against our city ordinance. They're at the park when it's dark, so technically it's against our city ordinance and there's a violation. So sometimes police have to remove, just like the councilwoman said, ask to leave, because when somebody calls, police have to respond and act on that violation. But we all are here talking openly that it's happening because of the need and the demand for it. So it really necessitates us to do something, look at changing the policy, but also we need to do both together, change the policy and that lighting for sports play, but also for pathway and walkways. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
One last thing, Mayor, and the commander reminded me that in the staff report, there was a provision for cameras. And so the neighborhoods I mentioned, I mean, that could be a trade-off where if you're willing to take this on, you could not only get lighting and actual structured programming from Culture and Community Services, but you may get cameras in your park as well for additional surveillance or recording of incidents, or even real-time monitoring for some of the cameras that are overseen by the police department. So just wanted to add that piece.
Great.
I think Mr. Wolf has something.
Thank you for that. And also to be remote controlled, for example, to be able to turn them on with an app or something and turn them off. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
No, I was just going to say, as the commander said, it's pretty early, but we did include in the staff report some information because there is a security component to this conversation, which obviously didn't occur a lot tonight. There is on page 50 of the staff report some information that was given to us from the police department that has to deal with the cameras and the security component to this. So as we go further down this conversation, we're going to need to bring that to the forefront as we go.
Just for 1 second, I'm just looking for. Okay. I think it was you, sir, that mentioned a reduction in cost for service at Southlands Park, for example, from that study. So there's some concrete, tangible evidence to show that the lighting helps with that aspect as well. Okay, well, so am I correct? We don't have to take a motion on anything or give any further direction. I think this is just a workshop. Okay, sounds good. I appreciate everyone's input. I sincerely do. I think this is how policies should be taken, right? Hearing community members inform the decision ultimately. And this provides some clarity to staff and all of us as well, to be advocates. Just like myself, I'm committed to circling back with the school district and looking at public access to some of their facilities, particularly the ones I've already had, is furthering the conversation of utilizing their gymnasiums for indoor soccer play to accommodate that which I know there's a shortage of here in our city. Okay? Thank you. Does any member have any future agenda items? No? Okay. There be no further business on the agenda, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.